Hi guys, in today's video we're going to talk about roto-toms again. I have another video on that which I will link to somewhere up here, but this one is going to mostly concern the mounting system, which it was pointed out to me by a viewer that I didn't really talk about how they're mounted or attached to things in my last video that explained roto-toms, and so I'm going to try to cover a couple of the options for doing that today in this video. So the standard mounting system for most roto-tom sets is this track mount. So this is just a square of metal, and it's got this track in it here, and the roto-tom, threaded spindle parts fit down into the track, and of course these metal handles are also threaded, and they kind of turn down and lock the roto-tom into the track. You can get these tracks in various lengths. This is probably the standard size length that most of them came with because it will mount 3 roto-toms with a little bit of room for error on the ends. You can get them shorter where you can only mount 2, or even really tiny where you can just mount 1 roto-tom at a time. But this is typically how they're mounted. And unfortunately, it's sort of an irritating system because most people don't want them perfectly linear. As with any drum setup, you kind of maybe want some curvature to play with the distances, and you can't do that with this. So this track, there are a number of ways to mount the track to a stand. Some companies make a stand that has just a sort of a square clamp that you slide this into, but this one has this really convoluted bracketing system where basically this black piece here is mounted onto the top of a stand, and then this sort of rectangular bracket here attaches to the stand and then bolts into the track system. And of course it's adjustable. You can mount this anywhere, so you can have them sort of cantilevered out over one end or the other, or dead center mounted in the middle, depending on what your setup needs. This is really irritating though. It doesn't really hold that tight, and it's a single point mounting system, so the whole thing is kind of wobbly. But that's just, that's how most roto-toms come. So to use the standard track mount, you loosen this handle here, and ideally the roto-tom will slide out of the track. You can see that it's just got a lag bolt head on the bottom of it there, and that square portion of the bolt slides into the square channel, right? And then you can just, of course, to put it back, tighten up this large lever here, and it's semi-firmly in the track. So if we just look at how this is attached to the stand, you can see there's this sort of squarish black thing, clamp looking thing that holds the track mount. This actually can be used to mount just a single roto-tom. You could slide the this threaded post in here and use this same drum key type screw to clamp it in, and then you could use the the tilting feature to just mount one roto-tom out of there, although it would stick out either this way or that way, so you'd have to do a significant amount of tilting to get it to a normal playing range. But that's, I guess, optional. If you didn't want to mount this whole track, you could just have the one. So this is the other common mounting feature for these roto-toms, other than the track mount, is these individual sort of cubic clamp mounts. The clamp is just activated by these 2 drum key screws. It'd be kind of nice if they had like wing nuts or something in there, but if you have a drum key, it's fine. And it just clamps onto any stand tube within a certain range of dimensions. But basically the center threaded post of the roto-tom can go down into a hole vertically into the thing, and there is of course a screw on the back to secure it. But you can kind of see that there's this other hole through here, so which means you could mount this at a 90-degree angle to the way it's mounted now. Take this whole thing out of there and put it in there, and there's a hole for a screw on the bottom. Keep that tight. So you could basically mount it from a vertical stand or from a horizontal stand. Either way, there's no real tilting mechanism on this, so you'd have to mount it to a tom arm or something that had the ability to tilt if you wanted to get it to tilt, because the mounting bracket here only mounts it perfectly flat, whether it's 90 degrees one way or the other. One thing to note is that if you have the clamp like this, this post here, the threaded post, does not have the ability to have the end of the lag bolt on there that would fit into the track mount that I showed you earlier. So you have to have a separate post that does not have the bolt end to use this, and it has to have the bolt end to use the track mount. They are not sort of interchangeable. You'd have to buy a separate screw here, or like hacksaw the end of your bolt off in order to change to this from the standard track that we looked at earlier. So aside from these two standard options, the squarish clamp and the long track, they do sell stands which will accommodate just one RotoTom, and you have to buy the whole stand, you know, with the base and the legs and everything, and they will clamp in, I think, this style, but I'm not sure, and it will just accepts one, and it usually has a tilt on it and you can make adjustments. But those stands, the cheapest one I've ever seen is like $80 for one per RotoTom. That's kind of expensive. So there's one other RotoTom mounting system that I've seen that I don't think it's like official, but I've seen someone thread on a big screw bolt, what is that thing called? A nut. A big nut onto these things that has the right thread pitch but is really fat and wide, and so you can clamp it into like a rack mount for a normal drum set. And because basically what they're doing is they're making that threaded post wider so that clamps will accept it. Hopefully that was interesting, mounting for RotoToms. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I usually do answer comments. Thanks for watching, and you guys take it easy.